Alex Carter had grease-stained hands and a heart full of unspoken emotions. He had spent the last 10 years of his life doing what he loved, fixing cars. From the moment he could remember, engines had fascinated him. He could tell what was wrong with a vehicle just by the sound of it. The roar of an engine, the clanking of tools, and the scent of motor oil were as natural to him as breathing. But despite his skill and dedication, the world saw him as nothing more than just a mechanic. At 29 years old, Alex was the proud owner of Carter's Auto Care, a small but successful repair shop in Chicago. He had worked tirelessly to build his business, starting from an unpaid apprenticeship in a rundown garage to eventually opening his own shop. His reputation had grown over the years. Customers trusted him because he was honest, hardworking, and skilled. He never overcharged, never cut corners, and always treated people with respect. Yet, despite his professional success, Alex found himself struggling in one particular area of his life: love. It wasn't for lack of trying. He had been on multiple dating apps, gone on dates, and even tried being set up by friends. But every time, the moment he mentioned his profession, something shifted. Women would force a polite smile, their interest fading as they realized he wasn't a corporate executive, a doctor, or a high-earning entrepreneur. Some were more subtle about their disappointment, while others outright ghosted him after the first date. One evening, after another failed date, Alex found himself sitting alone in his garage. The shop was closed for the night, but he stayed back, wiping his hands on a rag as he stared at his reflection in the glass window of his office. His dark brown hair was slightly messy, his blue eyes tired from a long day of work. His hands, rough from years of handling tools, had fixed hundreds of cars, but he couldn't seem to fix his own loneliness. "Why does no one look beyond the surface?" he muttered to himself, tossing the rag onto the workbench. The sound of an approaching car interrupted his thoughts. He turned to see the bright headlights of a sleek black Mercedes-Benz pulling into the garage's parking lot. The vehicle rolled forward smoothly, but as it approached, the driver hit the brakes abruptly, causing the tires to screech slightly against the concrete floor. Alex frowned. It was late, too late for a regular customer. The car door opened and a woman stepped out. She was tall, with long chestnut brown hair cascading over her shoulders. Dressed in a fitted blazer and jeans, she looked elegant yet casual. She seemed out of place in a mechanic shop at this hour. "Is this Carter's Auto Care?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. Alex nodded, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Yeah, but we're closed for the night. You having car trouble?" She sighed, glancing back at her car. "Yes, the engine started making weird noises, and I didn't want to risk it breaking down in the middle of the road." Alex walked closer, glancing at the car. "Did the check engine light come on?" She nodded. "Yes, about an hour ago. I was on my way home from work when it started acting up." He motioned toward the car. "Pop the hood. Let me take a look." She hesitated for a moment before stepping forward and pressing the hood release button. Alex lifted it and peered inside. Even in the dim light, he could tell there was an issue with the timing belt. "Looks like your timing belt is worn out. You were smart to stop driving it. It could have caused serious damage if it snapped while you were on the road." She exhaled in relief. "I had no idea. I just knew something felt off." He wiped his hands again and looked at her. "I can fix it, but not tonight. It'll take a couple of hours, and I don't have the part on hand. You can leave it here, and I'll get it done first thing in the morning." She hesitated. "I don't have another way to get home." Alex glanced at his truck parked outside. "I can give you a ride, if you're okay with that." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "I appreciate that." As they got into his truck, Alex couldn't help but wonder, was this just another customer, or was fate giving him a chance to change his story? Alex shifted his truck into drive, glancing over at Samantha as she settled into the passenger seat. The soft glow of the dashboard lights cast a faint illumination on her face, highlighting her delicate features. She smelled faintly of vanilla and something floral, probably an expensive perfume. Everything about her seemed refined, from the way she sat with perfect posture to the subtle way she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Alex had given customers rides home before, but something about this moment felt different. There was a quiet tension in the air, not uncomfortable, just charged. Clearing his throat, he decided to break the silence. "So, what do you do?" he asked, keeping his eyes on the road as he pulled onto the main street. Samantha exhaled as if the question carried weight. "I'm a corporate lawyer. I work at Whitman and Gray." Alex raised an eyebrow. He wasn't too familiar with the legal world, but even he had heard of that firm. It was one of the biggest in Chicago. "Impressive. That must keep you busy." She let out a dry chuckle. "You have no idea. Long hours, constant stress, and barely any time for myself. But it's what I signed up for." Alex nodded, turning the truck onto a quieter road. "Sounds intense. Do you like it?" She hesitated, which told Alex everything. "I do, most days. It's rewarding when I win a case. But sometimes it feels like I'm constantly running, and I don't even know if I like where I'm headed." Her honesty surprised him. He had expected the usual, "I love my job, and it's my passion" speech. "I get that," he admitted. "Running a business is kind of the same. You push yourself to keep going, but some days you wonder if it's worth it." Samantha turned her head slightly, studying him. "You own your shop, right?" "Yeah, Carter's Auto Care. Been running it for about 5 years now." She nodded. "That's impressive." Alex scoffed, shaking his head. "You're the first person to say that. Usually people just hear mechanic and assume I couldn't do anything else." Samantha frowned. "That's ridiculous. Running a business takes skill. It's not just about fixing cars. It's about managing customers, handling finances, making sure everything runs smoothly. People don't give small business owners enough credit." Alex glanced at her, surprised by her words. Most women he had met never thought twice about his job. "Thanks," he said, a little softer than he intended. For a few moments, silence settled between them, but it wasn't awkward. It was thoughtful. As they reached a stoplight, Alex stole a glance at Samantha. She was looking out the window, her fingers absent-mindedly playing with the edge of her sleeve. "So, how did your car end up in trouble?" "It's a Mercedes. Those things usually run smooth." She sighed. "I don't know much about cars. I was driving home from work when the check engine light came on, and the engine started making weird noises. I figured it was safer to stop at the first shop I saw." Alex nodded. "Good call. Your timing belt is worn out. If it had snapped while you were driving, it could have caused major damage." Samantha blinked. "Wow, I had no idea it was that serious." "Most people don't. That's why mechanics get a bad reputation. Some guys take advantage of customers who don't know better. But I've always believed in being honest." Samantha gave him a small smile. "That's rare. I appreciate it." The light turned green, and Alex continued driving. After another few minutes, they pulled up in front of a sleek high-rise apartment building. The entrance was well lit, with a doorman standing outside. It was a stark contrast to Alex's world, a reminder that Samantha lived in a completely different lifestyle from his. "Nice place," he commented. She smiled slightly. "It has its perks." Samantha unbuckled her seatbelt, but didn't move to leave immediately. She turned to Alex, her expression softer now. "Thanks again for the ride, and for checking my car so late." "No problem," Alex said. "I'll have it ready by noon tomorrow." She nodded but hesitated. There was a moment, just a brief second, where it felt like she wanted to say something else. But then she simply smiled. "Good night, Alex." "Good night, Samantha." She stepped out, and Alex watched as she walked toward the entrance. The doorman greeted her, holding the door open. Just before disappearing inside, she glanced back for a brief moment before continuing. Alex sat in his truck for a long time after that, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel. He had met plenty of customers, plenty of women. But something about Samantha felt different. She hadn't looked at him the way others did. She hadn't dismissed him because of his job. But then again, she was from a different world. A high-powered lawyer like her probably wouldn't go for a mechanic. Would she? As he drove back home, that question lingered in his mind. The next morning, Alex arrived at Carter's Auto Care earlier than usual. The garage smelled of motor oil and steel, the familiar scent grounding him as he rolled up his sleeves and got to work. Samantha's Mercedes sat in the shop, waiting for him. He had worked on luxury cars before, but there was something different about this one, maybe because its owner had stayed in his mind all night. As he replaced the timing belt, his thoughts drifted back to their conversation in the truck. Samantha hadn't looked down on him. She had actually listened, even defended his profession. It was rare for someone from her world to even acknowledge what he did, let alone respect it. By the time noon rolled around, he was tightening the last bolt when he heard the familiar sound of heels clicking against the concrete floor. "Right on time," he said without looking up. Samantha smiled as she approached, her brown eyes scanning the shop. "I try to be punctual." Alex wiped his hands on a rag. "Your car's all set. It was just the timing belt, but I checked everything else while I was at it. Should run smoothly now." She raised an eyebrow. "And how much do I owe you?" He smirked. "Just the cost of the part, no labor charge." She crossed her arms. "That's not how businesses make money, Alex." He shrugged. "Consider it a thank you for actually treating me like a person last night." Samantha studied him for a moment before taking out her wallet. Instead of cash or a credit card, she pulled out a business card and handed it to him. "If you ever need legal help, contracts, property disputes, anything, call me." Alex took the card, running his fingers over the embossed letters. "You don't owe me anything, Samantha." She gave him a small smile. "Maybe not, but I like to return favors." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was heavy with something unspoken. Finally, Samantha broke the silence. "Do you ever take a break from fixing cars?" Alex chuckled. "Not often." "Why?" She hesitated, then exhaled as if making a decision. "Because I have dinner reservations tonight, and I don't feel like eating alone." "You interested?" Alex blinked. He hadn't expected that. "Are you asking me on a date?" Samantha smirked. "I guess I am." A slow grin spread across Alex's face. "Yeah, I'd like that." That evening, Alex found himself standing in front of an upscale restaurant, feeling slightly out of place. His usual attire, jeans and a work shirt, had been replaced by a button-down and a clean pair of dress shoes. Samantha was already there, waiting outside in a sleek black dress that made him forget how to breathe for a second. "You clean up well," she teased. Alex smirked. "So do you, though I feel like I should be fixing a car instead of walking into a place like this." She laughed. "Relax, it's just dinner." Inside, the restaurant was dimly lit with soft jazz playing in the background. The waiter greeted Samantha by name, which told Alex she was a regular here. As they sat down, he couldn't help but notice a few curious glances in their direction. Men in suits, women in elegant dresses, people who probably assumed he didn't belong here. Samantha, however, didn't seem to care. She engaged him in conversation like they were old friends, asking him about his childhood, his dreams, and what he would be doing if he weren't a mechanic. "Honestly," Alex said, setting down his fork, "I'd still be fixing cars. I love what I do." Samantha smiled. I admire that. Alex hesitated. You know, I have to ask, why me? She tilted her head. What do you mean? You could be dating a CEO or a banker? Someone from your world? Samantha sighed, swirling her wine glass. Maybe that's the problem. My world is full of people who only care about money, status, and appearances. But you? You're real, Alex. You're hardworking, honest, and you actually listen. Alex felt something stir in his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. So you don't care that I work with my hands? Samantha smirked. I think it's kind of attractive. Alex chuckled, shaking his head. You're full of surprises, Samantha. As the night went on, something between them shifted. What had started as an unexpected encounter was turning into something neither of them had planned for. And for the first time in a long time, Alex felt like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't just a mechanic in someone else's eyes. Alex had never been the kind of guy to overthink things, but as he walked Samantha to her apartment after their dinner, he found himself questioning everything. Was this real? Was a woman like her, polished, successful, and from a completely different world, really interested in him? They reached the entrance of her high-rise building, the city lights reflecting in the glass doors. Samantha turned to him, her brown eyes warm yet unreadable. I had a really great time tonight, she said softly. Alex smirked. Me too, even if I felt like I didn't belong in that fancy restaurant. She rolled her eyes. That's ridiculous. You were the best part of my night. There was a pause, a moment where neither of them spoke, yet everything was being said in the silence. Alex wasn't sure what to do next. Did he say goodnight and leave? Did he ask to see her again? Samantha made the decision for him. Would you like to come up? She asked. Alex blinked, caught off guard. Are you sure? I mean, I don't want to make things weird. Alex, she interrupted, a small smile playing on her lips. I'm asking you to come up because I want you to. No pressure. Just keep me company a little longer? He studied her face, searching for hesitation, but finding none. Okay, he said, his voice low. She led him inside, greeting the doorman with a polite nod as they stepped into the elevator. The air inside felt thick with something unspoken, the quiet hum of the elevator only amplifying it. When the doors opened, they stepped into a sleek, modern hallway. Her apartment was just as he expected, minimalistic yet elegant. Large windows overlooked the Chicago skyline, and soft lighting cast a golden glow across the space. Alex took a deep breath. Nice place, Samantha smirked. You've said that before. It's still true. She walked over to the kitchen. Do you want a drink? Just water's fine. She poured them both a glass, then motioned for him to sit on the couch. As he settled in, she sat next to him, tucking her legs beneath her. For a few moments, they just sat there, sipping their drinks, the silence surprisingly comfortable. Then Samantha broke it. You think this is crazy, don't you? Alex chuckled. A little. Why? He set his glass down. Because you and I, we're different. Your world is high-end law firms, luxury apartments, and expensive restaurants. My world is grease-stained hands, long hours at the shop, and a paycheck that depends on how many cars I fix in a week. Samantha tilted her head. You make it sound like we live on different planets. Don't we? She sighed. Alex, I've been around men in suits my entire life. They know how to talk, how to impress, how to pretend they care about more than themselves. But you're real. You don't try to be someone you're not, and that's what I like about you. Alex studied her. But what happens when reality sets in, when you realize that I don't fit into your world? She took his hand, her fingers soft against his calloused skin. Then maybe I change my world a little. His chest tightened at her words. He had spent years believing that women like Samantha wouldn't look twice at a guy like him. But here she was, holding his hand, telling him she saw something in him that others didn't. "You sure about this?" he asked, his voice quieter now. She smiled. "I wouldn't have invited you up if I wasn't." There was nothing left to say. Slowly, Alex leaned in, closing the space between them. Samantha met him halfway, and when their lips finally touched, it was soft, unhurried, yet filled with something deeper than either of them had anticipated. As the night stretched on, neither of them spoke about the future, about what this meant in the long run. But in that moment, nothing else mattered. The morning light filtered through the large windows of Samantha's apartment, casting a soft glow over the modern space. Alex blinked awake, the unfamiliarity of his surroundings hitting him before the events of last night came rushing back. Samantha. He turned his head to see her still asleep beside him, her dark hair sprawled over the pillow, her breathing steady. She looked peaceful, different from the confident, composed woman he had met just days ago. For a moment, Alex just watched her, his mind running in circles. He had told himself that this wasn't possible, that a woman like her wouldn't be interested in a guy like him. But she had proved him wrong. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open. When she saw him watching her, a slow smile spread across her lips. "Morning." "Morning." There was no awkwardness, no regret in her expression, just warmth. "I half expected you to sneak out before sunrise," she teased, stretching lazily. Alex smirked. "Thought about it. But then I figured you'd call the cops on me for trespassing." She laughed, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Smart man?" They lay there for a while, neither in a hurry to move, until Samantha finally sighed. "I should probably get ready for work." Alex nodded, sitting up. "Yeah, and I should head back to the shop." She hesitated, then asked, "Will I see you again?" The vulnerability in her voice surprised him. She wasn't just asking out of politeness, she genuinely wanted to know. He reached over, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Only if you want to." Her smile was all the answer he needed. Over the next few weeks, Alex and Samantha found themselves slipping into an unexpected rhythm. Their worlds had collided in the most unexpected way, and yet neither of them seemed eager to pull away. Samantha would visit the shop after work, still in her fitted blazers and high heels, sticking out like a sore thumb among the grease-covered mechanics. But she never seemed to mind. "So what exactly are you doing?" she asked one evening, watching as Alex worked on a Mustang's engine. He wiped the sweat from his forehead. "Changing the spark plugs. Want to help?" She laughed. "You do realize I don't know the first thing about cars, right?" "That's what I'm here for." He handed her a wrench, guiding her through the steps. She fumbled a little, but when she finally got it right, she beamed at him like she had just won a case in court. "Not bad," Alex admitted. She grinned. "Maybe I have a backup career if the law ever gets boring." Moments like these made Alex realize that, despite their differences, they worked. But not everyone saw it that way. The first real test came when Samantha invited Alex to a networking event, one filled with attorneys, investors, and executives. Alex had been hesitant, but Samantha had insisted. "They'll love you," she had said. She was wrong. The moment they walked in, Alex could feel the judgmental stares. The men in suits, the women in designer dresses, they all sized him up like he didn't belong. At first he tried to ignore it, but then one of Samantha's colleagues, a tall man with a sharp jawline, approached them. "So you're the famous mechanic?" the man said, his tone just a little too condescending. Alex forced a smile. "That's me." "Interesting," the man mused, swirling his drink. "Samantha, I thought you had a thing for ambitious men." Samantha's expression hardened. "And what exactly are you implying, Mark?" Mark smirked. Just that it's surprising. You usually date guys in your league? Alex clenched his jaw. He had heard this kind of talk before, people assuming that money and status made a man more valuable. Before he could say anything, Samantha stepped forward. Alex runs his own business, works harder than half the people in this room, and doesn't pretend to be someone he's not. If that's not ambition, I don't know what is. Mark's smirk faltered. Relax, Sam. I was just making conversation. Try making better ones, she snapped before turning to Alex. Let's get out of here. As they walked out, Alex glanced at her. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. And just like that, he knew. She wasn't ashamed of him. The more time they spent together, the more people questioned them. Are you sure about this? Samantha's friends would ask. You think she'll stick around? Alex's co-workers would tease, but neither of them cared. One evening, Alex surprised Samantha by taking her to his favorite diner, a small, family-run place with no fancy decor, just great food. As they sat in a booth, sharing a plate of fries, Samantha looked at him and said, I love this. Alex raised an eyebrow. The food? She smiled. Number us. His heart clenched at her words. He reached across the table, taking her hand. Me too. Months passed and things got serious. But with that seriousness came decisions. One night, Samantha came to the shop, looking conflicted. What's wrong? Alex asked, setting down a wrench. She sighed. I got an offer to move to New York, a huge promotion. His stomach dropped. And you're taking it? She hesitated. I don't know. If I do, She didn't finish the sentence, but he knew what she meant. Alex exhaled. Sam, this is your dream. I'd never ask you to stay for me. She bit her lip. What if I don't want to leave you behind? He stepped closer, cupping her face. Then you need to ask yourself what really makes you happy. Tears welled in her eyes. You do. Alex's heart pounded. Then stay. She searched his face for a long moment before whispering, Okay? And just like that, they chose each other. They knew it wouldn't be easy. People would always have opinions. Their worlds would never fully merge, but none of it mattered. Because when Samantha walked into Alex's garage, wearing her expensive suits but smiling like she belonged there, when Alex took her to late-night diners, making her laugh until she cried, they knew. They were home, and no one else's judgment could change that.